Good evening for those who may have already began to join us in this particular session and time, as we are grateful to God for surely another opportunity to be able to be present and to share even so in our Bible study settings. We want to acknowledge our prayerful support for um, Sister Mays and her family in the passing of her mother, Barbara McLemore, and encourage you certainly to pray with her and for her during this particular season. Also, want to um, let you know that on Sunday we will have a visiting musician with us. And so we want to encourage the men of our church, and you can help me to do that for those who may not be watching us during the Bible study time. Want you to help encourage the brothers to be present on Saturday at 5 o'clock p.m. for rehearsal so that they will be able to sing on this coming Sunday. We are working aggressively to resolve our music ministry concerns and issues, and trust and pray that you will help to facilitate Sunday's worship by encouraging the brothers of the church to be present on Saturday for the rehearsal time at 5 o'clock p.m. so that we can have a great worship experience on this Sunday as we had on this past Sunday with the support of Billy Taylor Jr. and Charmaine Taylor and Destiny Taylor, all coming to support us and to be with us. And so, again, employ or implore you to ask you to reach out and connect with any brother in our church that you may have access to and contact information, and encourage them to be present for a great men's rehearsal for a great Sunday worship experience. All right, we will be on tonight looking at Psalms 55 and verse number 22. Psalm 55 and verse number 22 will represent our text for tonight. And we're going to try to share some things relative to what we are exposed to through this psalm, and trust that it will be a blessing to you, and that God will enrich your day, enrich your spirit, enrich your heart, and that God will maybe in some way comfort those who need comforting, strengthen those who need strengthening, bless those who need blessing, help those who need help right now because of different things that may be transpiring on the horizon of your life. On Sunday, we listened to Reverend Joe Theus as he talked to us about how to go from sighing to singing, as he preached from Psalms number 13. And to some degree, possibly my lesson tonight may be an extension of his sermon. It may be a follow-up to his sermon. And so here is what David says in Psalms number 55 and verse number 22. I certainly would encourage you to read the entire psalm because it would be a very good thing to do. And I'm going to talk about some aspects of other things that are in the psalm. So I encourage you to read the whole psalm, but I'm just going to read verse 22 right now for our benefit. So here we are. Psalms 55, verse 22. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. Oh my goodness, that's good news right there. That's good news right there. It says that obviously we can have problems, but here is in the text a promise. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved. That's our text for tonight. That's our text for tonight. Psalm 55, verse number 22. All right. You know, as I listen to what David says as he penned the words of this song, this Old Testament hymn in the hymn book of the Bible, here is what came to mind. That's a more modern day, to some degree, a song that I'm sure those of us who are of age is familiar with. It is the song entitled, It Is Well With My Soul. I'm sure somebody who's looking at me right now, listening to me right now, knows, if you will, the melody and possibly even the lyrics to this song, because it's an old song, an old favorite of the church from way back when. And the truth of the matter is, it is a song that has over 200 years of history of singing, over 200 years of history of singing. Oh, well, if not 200 years, it's getting pretty close to 200 years. When I do the real math, it's getting pretty close to 200 years. I know 150 plus. How about that? And so it is. The song, It Is Well With My Soul. You know, sometimes it would probably be good if we knew how songs came about, what moved and motivated the author or the writer of the song and the lyrics, what moved and motivated them to be able to put pen to paper and to come up with such wonderful lyrics and such a powerful song as this song, It Is Well With My Soul. Well, from just a little research, I discovered that a man by the name of Horatio Spafford, with the P, Spafford, Horatio Spafford, experienced some traumatic events in his family. Traumatic events in his family, not just one, but several traumatic events had taken place in his family. And this was way back in 1873. When I tell you that this song, It Is Well With My Soul, has been around for a long time and been sung by many for so many years. Clearly, 1873 marks a time in history of at least 150 years plus. And so it is. The song was birthed out of some traumatic events in the family of Horatio Spafford. And so, what could have made him sigh caused him literally to start singing. The things that could have caused him to sigh and to suffer simply in a state of sorrow really brought him to a place of singing. And so, as Reverend Theus helped us on Sunday to know that it may seem like a long time, but the good news is that God can move us from our sighing to singing. And here is what Psalm 55, verse number 22 does for us. And here is what this old song that I remember Reverend Jack Rector at the Antioch Baptist Church, this was one of his favorite songs, his favorite hymn that he would lift over and over again. It's, you know what it says, when peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Some of y'all may be kind of rehearsing it in your mind right now. You may be even singing it right now. You know the words, you know the melody, you know the song. And so here is what Spafford said. He said, in the midst of these traumatic events that had literally devastated his family, he said, it is well. And I don't think he was being mealy-mouthed about it. I think he was really lifting his voice. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. And then he moved into another verse and said, though Satan should buffet, and that's what the devil does sometimes. He buffets us. He brings trouble on us. He brings trials on us. He brings tears to our eyes. Though Satan may buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance, my goodness, let this blessed assurance control what happens in my spirit, what happens in my life, that Christ has regarded my helpless estate and hath shed his blood for my soul. That's where he went to, and he said, it is well, it is well, it is well with my soul. And it is my prayer tonight that even so, no matter what is happening, no matter what is taking place, no matter what is going on, that you too will adopt and the words of this song, the lyrics of this song, that you will adopt them, that you will apply them, appropriate them, excuse me, to your own life and to your own situation, and say tonight with your own assurance that it is well with my soul. Psalm 55, my brothers and sisters, when you read it in its entirety, when you really get a chance to start at verse number 1 and work your way down to verse number 22, I know what verse 22 says: cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. But when you go to the beginning of the psalm, when you go to verse number 1, here is what Psalm 55 details. It details for us David's anguish, his anguish. And I need to tell you, David is not the only one who knows something about being in a state of anguish. I mean, you hurt on the inside, you tore up from the flow up, you messed up. You understand? There's anguish in verses 1 through 3. When you read the psalm, you will be able to hear it in his voice. When you read the psalm, you will hear it in the tenor and the tone of his language. When you read the psalm, verses 1 through 3, you can't help but to see and to hear and to feel David's anguish. Why did he have this anguish? He had it because at this moment in his life, at this moment when, like Horatio Spafford, he was going through some traumatic things in relationship to his family and in relationship to those who had been following him faithfully, but now have turned against him. Here's what David, he felt, number one, abandoned by God. I know that maybe this sounds like a repeat of Sunday sermon. It appears to be somewhat, if you will, synonymous with what you heard on Sunday. And ain't nothing wrong with that for you getting another dose of the same medicine. David felt as if though he had been abandoned by God. Don't get mad at him. Don't hate the brother. Don't get upset with him. Don't look at him funny. Don't put David down, because there's more than just David who at some times in life, when life has dealt you a show enough blow, when life has dealt you a hand that you don't know how to play, when life has in essence put some cards on the table that literally, almost seemingly, is putting you out of the game of life. Here is what David felt: abandoned by God at this moment. I didn't say God abandoned him. I'm talking about how he felt. And you not know that you can have some things that take place in your life that can make you feel the wrong kind of way. And when I say feel the wrong kind of way, I'm talking about thinking the wrong kind of way. He felt abandoned by God. And he felt abandoned by God for what reason? Because he was being abused by men. When you understand, if you will, the context of the whole psalm, when you understand the background of the whole psalm, you will understand that David at this moment was being abused by men. I mean, he makes it real clear. He makes it real clear as he talks, you understand, to God, as he sings about his life journey and experiences at this chapter in his life. He simply says, I am where I am. I'm going through what I'm going through. I'm feeling what I'm feeling. You understand? Because of people, because of men, people who are damaging me in emotional ways, and they may not be hurting me physically, but they are hurting me spiritually and mentally and emotionally and psychologically. Their deceitfulness and their deeds and the things that they are doing are working on me and working against me. And so I feel like I'm being abused by men who I'm surrounded by in my life. And so, what is it, Pastor, else that you see as you get through the psalm and you go from verse number 9 to verse number 14? It helps us to understand that his anguish led him to his anger. His anguish led him to his anger. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you something. That when you are anguished or anguishing over some things, it can cause anger to build up. It can cause you to broad, and it can cause you, you understand, to get heated, to get overheated, to get fired up. Oh yeah. It can cause, you understand, you to start having some heart issues where, you understand, I'm not talking about a heart attack, but I'm just talking about heart issues. David was having some issues in his heart, and the issue was the anger that was building up in him, because at this moment he feels that he's being unjustly abused by men, and that God has abandoned him and allowed him to experience these kinds of things at the hands of men. There was trouble in his country. That's what he's angry about. Trouble in his country when there had been peace, and when he had been a formidable leader, when he'd been a great leader, when he had served the nation well. Now there is trouble in his country. And can I tell you what? The trouble that's caused is caused by people not distant from him, but people who are up close to him. Oh, my Lord. If I had time to really fool with that and tell you that sometimes the greatest hurt, the greatest pain, the greatest injury, the greatest upsets, you understand, that we can have in our life is not caused by people who are distant from us, but people who are up close and personal. And so his anger is because of trouble that is brewing in his country, but the trouble is caused by two people. Number one, it is his own son, Absalom. And then number two, it is one of his greatest supporters, one of his greatest warriors, a man by the name of Ahithophel. Ahithophel. Come on, say it with me. Ahithophel. Absalom, his son, is trying to overthrow the kingdom and take the throne from his father. And Ahithophel has been, you understand, used or is being used by Absalom to help bring about the downfall of David. A man David had trusted and counted on for so many years, who had been so faithful, who'd been so supportive, has now joined ranks with an enemy of David. And David's enemy is his own son. And so here is David in Psalm number 55. You understand, with his anguish and his anger in terms of the treachery that is going on in his country to cause him to lose his seat on the throne. Ahithophel and his own son, Absalom. Sometimes the very people who you think that you could count on the most are the very people who you can count on to possibly give you the greatest amount of pain and trouble, heartache, and heartbreak. Well, here's the great news for us tonight as I try to move through to get down to verse number 22. Here is the great news for us tonight. Are you ready for the great news? The great news is that Psalm 55 doesn't just tell us about David's anguish. Psalm 55 doesn't just tell us about David's anger, but Psalm 55 also details for us David's answer to what agonized him in verses 16 through 23. When you read verses 16 all the way down to the close of the Psalm, verse number 23, which encompasses our verse for the night, verse number 22, you will find David's answer to what agonized him. Listen, what's agonizing you? What's bothering you? What's troubling you? What's got you bent all out of shape? What's got you upset? What's got you all messed up? And I said earlier, toe up from the flow up. What is it, if you will, that you are agonizing over, agonizing about? Here's what David says, is that there is an answer to what is agonizing you. And so here is David's answer. Here's David's answer. Are you ready? It's in verse number 16. His answer is that when life puts you in this posture, when life puts you in this place, when you find yourself where I am, David says, what you got to do is you got to pray boldly. Oh yeah. Pray boldly. Listen, when you look at verse number 16, let's go there real quick. I know we're going to come back to verse 22, but listen, in verse number 16, David says, as for me, I know what the men are doing. I know what Absalom is doing. I know what Ahithophel is doing. I know what the others who are joining ranks with them are doing against me. But David says, as for me, I will call upon God, and God shall save me. So what does he do? He prays boldly. Oh my, yes, he comes to God. He comes to the throne of God. He comes into the place you understand, the hallowed walls of God's sanctuary. And I ain't just talking about on earth, but I'm talking about in glory. And he talks to God straight up. He tells God all about his troubles. And here's what he believes. He believes that God is going to hear his faintest cry. So he prays boldly. There's some things you got to just talk to God about without fear. You got to talk to God about without wondering and worrying about, am I saying the right thing? Am I bringing the right thing to you? Should I even, Lord, be putting this on your plate? Should I even be putting this in your ear? He prays boldly in verse number 16. And when I say boldly, can I give you two C words? Here's C word number one. He prays confidently. And that simply means that he prays with confidence. Listen, when you talk with God, when you pray to God, when you turn to God, when you look to God, when you ask God for something, you got to do it confidently. Don't you hear him right there in verse 16? He said, as for me, I will call upon God and the Lord shall save me. I'm confident that when I boldly, I ain't talking about, you understand, like I got a right to be. I ain't talking about like I've lived so well, lived so right. I ain't talking about it as though, you understand, I'm better than somebody else. I'm not talking about that I'm bigger than somebody else and that God has got to entertain, you understand, my prayer above somebody else's prayer. But David says, I got a right to approach God. I got a right to approach God because I got a reason to approach God. And I just believe that God is going to come to my rescue. And so you got to come to God boldly, not scared of God, not scared of what God's answer is going to be, what God's response is going to be. He came confidently. And not only did he come confidently, when you look at verse number 17, you'll discover that he came continually. Woo-hoo! There it is. There it is. You got to come to God with confidence, but don't just come to God one time. You got to keep coming to God with the same confidence that, Lord, what I asked you for earlier, I'm asking you for one more time. What I told you about earlier, I'm telling you about one more time. What I'm looking for you to make a way, you understand, I'm asking you one more time. I'm going to ask you and ask you and ask you. I'm going to put it before you over and over and over again because I'm confident that if I continue to bring my prayer, my need to you, that you will save me. That's what he says in verse number 16 and verse number 17. So here is your answer to your issue. Here is your answer to your problem. Here is your answer to your need. Here is your answer to your situation. Here is your answer to your crisis. Here is your answer to whatever has got you with tear-stained eyes. You got to pray boldly. Let the devil hear you pray. Whoa, good God Almighty. Let me say it one more time. When you pray boldly, you don't care who hear you pray, including the devil. Let the devil hear you pray and call on the name of the Lord like it's your last time and you will never have another chance. He prays boldly with confidence and he does it continually. In verse number 17, where the continually, Reverend, is in verse 17, evening and morning and at noon. He said, I'm going to pray boldly. Evening, morning, and noon, I'm going to pray confidently. I'm going to pray continually because I need to put this thing in the hands of God. Hold on. Not only does he pray boldly, but I'm finna hurry up and drop this in your plate. I'm going to put this in the gumbo. He prays believingly. It ain't nothing wrong with coming to God with boldness, but you got to come with boldness, believing that God is going to work it out. Hold on. Look here. Before you close your Bible, before you think there's nothing else, drop down to verse number 18. See, this is why I told you it would be good if you read the whole psalm. When you drop down to verse number 18, listen at what David says in verse number 18. He has delivered my soul in peace. No wonder that Horatio Spafford, when he said, "It is well with my soul," what he's saying is that I was in a place where I felt abandoned by God. I was in a place of anguish. I was in a place maybe of even anger. But guess what? I had a talk with God. I told God about it. I brought it before the Lord. I said, "Father, maybe I stretch my hand to thee. No other help I know. If you withdraw yourself from me, where shall I go?" Here is what David says in verse number 18, that God has delivered my soul in peace. Do you need some peace right now? I don't know what your problem is. Do you need some peace right now? I don't know what the prescription is that the doctor has ordered for you because of the prognosis that the medical community has put on your plate. Let me tell you something, but here is what David said. David said that God can give you peace in the midst of your pain, that God can give you peace in the midst of your problem, that God can give you peace in the midst of the things that's perplexing your life. God can give you peace in the midst of the things that's pulling you down. God can give you peace in the midst of the people who putting you down. David said, he delivered my soul in peace. And so David says, here is the answer. Here is the answer. You need to pray to God boldly, and you need to pray to God believingly, believing that when I pray, when I talk with God, when I turn it over to the Lord, that the Lord is going to help me. The Lord is going to help me. The Lord is going to hold me. The Lord is going to heal me. The Lord is going to see me through, as Remthea said, my this and my that. And so it is. So it is. That's his answer. That's his answer. Listen. I know you know this already, but I just want to rehearse it one more time. And that is that in real life, somebody say real life, because life is real. In real life, let me tell you something. Life just keeps on life. And in real life, life takes turn. Life, you understand, things happen. And let me tell you something. It's always the unexpected. Listen, in real life, the faithful follower, possibly that's you. In real life, the faithful worshiper, maybe that's you, can find themselves facing extreme and seemingly impossible situations. Oh, I know I'm right. I know I'm right. And some of you know I'm right, because that's where you are right now. You are a faithful follower of the Lord, a faithful worshiper of the Lord. But in spite of being like David, a faithful follower, a faithful worshiper, you find yourself facing extreme and seemingly, don't miss that word, seemingly impossible situations. Oh yeah. You've been there, I've been there, we've been there, where it looked like ain't nowhere in the world I'm going to get out of this. Ain't nowhere in the world I'm going to come through this. No way in the world, you understand, that this thing ain't going to get the best of me. No way in the world this ain't going to knock the wind out of my sails. And no way in the world this ain't going to bring me down. Listen, sometimes you look at the giants in your life, and you think that the giant is bigger than your God. Woo, good God Almighty. But I'm here to tell you on tonight that there is some great news. And the great news is, in spite of the fact that there are times when we face extreme or seemingly impossible situations, what's impossible with men is possible with God. Oftentimes, my brothers and sisters, and I could be wrong, but oftentimes there are times when we have gotten ourselves in deeper trouble. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sometimes we have gotten ourselves in deeper trouble. Possibly we have gone from the skillet to the frying pan because we simply didn't let God take care of it. Whatever your it is, I don't know what your it is. You probably don't know what mine is, but whatever our it is that's causing us chaos and causing us, you understand, catastrophic moments and causing us to cry sometimes. Whatever your it is, there are times when we don't let God handle it. We don't let God take care of it. And because we try to be a DIY, a do-it-yourselfer, a DIY, do it yourself. Listen, there are some things you ought to do for yourself when you can. There are some things that you ought to do for yourself, you understand, when you have the ability to do so. But there are times when, in essence, we cannot be in the DIY category, do it yourself category. Why? Because we end up getting ourselves in deeper trouble than we're already in. Sometimes, and I told you I could be wrong, but sometimes I believe our actions result in more headaches. You already got a headache. But our actions, because we're trying to do it ourselves by ourselves, we're trying to fix it, work it out on our own, it results in more headaches and more heartaches and more sorrow, when the real solution would have been to give it to the Lord, to do what David says in verse number 22, to cast your cares upon the Lord. Your burden upon the Lord. When we don't do that, there are times when we find ourselves experiencing more headaches, more heartaches, more heartbreaks. Oh, yeah. And sorrows because we didn't let God take care of it. In Psalms number 79 and verse number 8, Psalm 79 and verse number 8, the Bible talks about the children of Ephraim, the children of Ephraim. And in Psalm 79 verse number 8, it says that the children of Ephraim had given up and turned back. They gave up and turned back. They were in a battle that they had the ability to possibly win, but they couldn't stay in there. They couldn't stick and stay. They got weary, they got worn down, they got worn out by the battle, which was still going on, you understand, but they allowed themselves to mentally to give in and to give up and to give over the battle by doing what? By giving up, throwing in the white towel, raising the white flag, and they turned back away from the fight that they could have been victorious over. But they didn't wait on God. They didn't trust God. They didn't let God handle it. They didn't let God have it. They went in there saying, oh yeah, we got this, only to discover that maybe it was a little rougher than they were expecting. And when it got rough, when the road got rough, the going got tough, and the hills started getting hard to climb, you know what they did? They turned, the Bible says, and went back. Went back where? Went back to what? Well, possibly for us, it could mean, as we try to get, you understand, some inspiration out of this, some instruction out of this. They went back to a doubting faith. Oh Lord. Instead of a delivering faith, they went back to a doubting faith. They went back disbelieving and doubting. They went back, you understand, defeated and dismayed and disappointed. When the truth of the matter is, if they could have just held on a little while longer, if they could have stayed with it a little while longer, they would have discovered that God was going to give them a great victory, but they went back. Listen, there are some people who done went back away from church. They didn't went back away from worship. They didn't went back away from prayer. They didn't went back away from praise. They didn't went back from giving God glory and honor. They didn't went back from passionate, praise and worship. They used to be, moving forward. They used to be more positive. They used to be more energetic. They used to be more excited. They used to be more ecstatic. They more, live and lively. But now, because it looked like the burden is too much, now that it looked like the giant is too big, now that it looked like this thing is more than I can handle and bear, what do? They turn away from God. They turn away from the promise of God. They turn away from the presence of God. They turn away from the power of God. They turn away from the person of God. They turn away from the prosperity that God has got in mind for them if they would just endure hardness like a good soldier. That God is going to pay it off. God going to pay it off. God going to pay it off after a while. But they turned and went back in the day of battle. Listen, don't you let the devil see you going backwards. If the devil gonna see anything, he'll see you going forward. Don't you let the devil see you, bowing down when the devil ought to see you standing up. Don't you let the devil see you, using 3 boxes of puffs when the truth of the matter is you need to learn how to say, I done cried my last tear yesterday. And if I'm going to shed any more tears, they're going to be tears of rejoicing because the Lord is going to give me some victory over what's victimizing me. Psalm 55, my brothers and my sisters. I hope you still with me. Psalm 55 teaches us how to have remarkable faith. Let me say that one more time. Psalm 55. When you really get down to where David is in verse number 22, taking this journey will help you to learn how to have remarkable faith. You get your dictionary and look up the word remarkable. I'm not going to take the time to break it down for you. I'm going to give you a homework assignment. Get your dictionary and look up the word remarkable. And when you do, I want you to talk to God, pray to God about developing, about having, about getting, about maintaining remarkable faith. Anybody can become flustered and frustrated and fearful and be fretting over stuff. But David says, what I want you to learn today is in the midst of your stuff, how to have some remarkable faith. And so when you have remarkable faith, David says, here's what you can do. You can rise above your circumstances. Ooh, hold on just a moment. I say, when you have remarkable faith, you can rise above your circumstances. I didn't say your circumstances were going to disappear. I didn't say they were going to all go away. I didn't say that they were, not going to be there to trouble you or to bother you. But what David says is that you can rise above them. You can operate above them. Instead of letting them take total control over you, you can start taking total control over how you feel about it, how you think about it, how you respond to it. I want God to help me to rise above my circumstances and my conditions and the chaos that's going on in my life. Anybody here, cook bread, cook cakes, cook biscuit. You know what's inside of there?
In some instances, there's some yeast. There is something inside of the mix that when you put it in the oven, when you put it in the hot place, it causes what's in there to rise. It causes it to swell. It causes it, you understand, to grow. Listen, that's what you want. You want God to help you not to go flat, but you want God to help you to rise. Oh, yeah, like dough that's put in a hot oven. I want God, not to let me get burnt up, but I do want God to help me to rise to the place I'm supposed to rise. So I'll be as good as I'm supposed to be when I come out of the oven. Listen, here's what David did, and here's what I want to encourage you to do. That look at your life in the light of God. Look at your problems. Look at your troubles. Look at your trials. Look at what's going on in your life in the light of God. Hold on. Don't forget what I'm trying to say. Don't miss what I'm trying to say. When you see what you are dealing with, when you see what you are facing, look at it in the light of God. Let God be your main focus, not your problem, not your pain, not the people, not the prognosis. Let God be your main focus. When you look at where you are in the light of God, then your problem is not bigger than God. God is always bigger than your problem. Your problem is not greater than God. God is always greater than your problem. When you look at where you are, don't look at it in the light of what's happening to you, but look at it in the light of who can help you. And that is God. That God is still God. God is still good. God is still got grace. God is still on the throne. I know it looks dark. I know it's dreary. I know it's dismal, but I still see God. I still see God. I still see God. That's what you want to do. You want to learn how to still see God no matter what it looked like on the front line. Hold on. Here's what David does. David says, I'm going to leave it in the hands of the eternal God who loves me. Hold on, that's a long sentence. David says, God loves me, and I know that. God loves me, and I believe that. And because I know that and I believe that, then what's happening to me, I'm going to leave it to the eternal God. I ain't gonna, no, I'm gonna take it out of my hands. I'm gonna put it in God's hand. I'm gonna take it off of my plate. I'm gonna put it on God's plate. I'm gonna take it out of my mind. I'm gonna put it on God's mind. Listen, you got to leave it to the eternal God, because God is God all by himself. And God can handle your business better than you can. And God can handle up on the business that's happening in your life better than you can, because he is the God of yesterday. He is the God of the right now, and he is the God of your future, your tomorrow. David says, when I discovered what was happening, what was going on, I said to myself, hold on, God's been here longer than me. And if anybody can help me through this, God can. The eternal God can. So I'm going to turn it over to him. I'm going to pray boldly. I'm going to pray believingly. I'm going to cast my burden on the Lord, and he shall sustain me. He shall keep me. Listen, the best way to ease yourself is to lay your load on God. I said the best way to ease yourself, to bring peace to yourself, is to lay your load on the Lord. Let God take care of it. 4 things real quick to remember. Here's 4 things I want you to remember real quick. Let me say, when you turn it over to God, when you give it over to God, when you call on the name of God about whatever that it is in your life, It may not happen when you expect for it to happen. I'm talking about for God to handle it. It may not happen when you expect for it to happen. It may not happen how you expect for it to happen. You want God to work it out. You want God to fix it. You want God to do something. But it may not happen how you expect for God to work it out. Hold on. It may not happen where you expect for it to happen. And it may not even happen through whom you expect for it to happen. Listen, God has a way of working through people. God has a way of working through human instruments. And sometimes God has a way of working through people who you really don't even expect to be the one who is the answer or brings the answer or provides the answer or provides the resource to meet your need. It may not come the way you think that it ought to come. But let me show you something. Let me tell you something. If we learn to allow God to take care of it, it will eliminate a lot of worry. If we could learn like David to let God take care of it, it could heal some of our ulcers. Do you know that some of us got ulcers? Oh, yes, we do. We got ulcers. I mean, we got a problem down there in our stomach, in our belly. We got ulcers because we are worried about this, worried about that, frustrated over this, frustrated over that. We got all of this stuff, you understand, bent up inside of us, you understand, and all that got us bent all over, bent out of shape. Let me tell you something. You have got also sometime because you have not turned some stuff over to God. When we turn it over to God, I just believe it. God can halt our frustration. When we turn it over to God, it can help us with our stress, our strain, and our struggle. When we turn it over to God, it will help us with our sleepless nights. Now, maybe that ain't your neighborhood. Maybe you ain't got no sleepless night. You sleeping just fine. But maybe there's somebody who I'm talking to. Maybe that this lesson is for somebody who's having some sleepless night. You have stress and strain, and you're struggling. You have frustration, and you're feeling all alone. I need to tell you that you got to learn how to give it to the Lord. And when you give it to the Lord, the old songwriter said, take your burden to the Lord and leave it right there. Listen, if we learn how to leave some stuff in God's hand, it will lessen our revenge. I didn't lose my thought. I thought I'd just let that one sink in a little bit. Because sometimes when people are problems for us, and that's what David had. David had people who were a problem for him. And when people are a problem for you, there are times when, in essence, it causes a revenge to stir up in you, a vengeful spirit. But when we learn how to turn it over to God, to cast our burden on God, our revenge would decrease because the Spirit of God would increase, even so in us. Let me tell you something. When we give it to the Lord, some of the harsh words we use, some of the harsh things we say, some of the bad language that can come out of our mouth. Oh, good God Almighty. You know I'm right. Let me tell you something. When we turn it over to God, and we allow it to control us and take control of us, we find ourselves using words and saying things that we regret and we can't take it back. But you got to learn how, before it get the best of you, to put it in the hands of God. Let me tell you something, and you may not believe me, but I believe you would have less wrinkles on your face if you would give some stuff to God. Your nerves wouldn't be as tense if you could give some stuff to God. Your eyes wouldn't be bloodshot red because of your anger and the tears you shed all night long if you would simply learn how to put some stuff in God's hand. David said, that's what I had to do. I had to learn how to put it in God's hand, because in my hands, it was tearing me to pieces. Here's what David does, and I'm through. he makes a declaration and a recommendation. His declaration and his recommendation is to cast your burden onto the Lord. That's a declaration and a recommendation. He can't make you do it, but he's encouraging you to do it. He can't make you do it, but he's inviting you to do it. He can't make you do it, but he's saying to you, this is what you ought to do, because this is what I had to do. I had to put it in God's hand. Listen, if your burden seems too heavy to bear, if you're worried, if you're fearful, if you are anxious about your past, about your present situation, or about some things that may be pending in your future, let me tell you something. David says, put it in God's hand. If you're frustrated over your handicaps, and believe me, there are people who have handicaps. Oh yeah, there are people who have handicaps. And when you have a handicap, sometimes you can be frustrated over the fact that you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do the other, or you can't do it like other people, or can't do it as well as other people, or you can't do it as much as other people. David says that when you have handicaps and you're frustrated, you got to learn how to even put your handicap in God's hand. When you're perplexed over your disappointments in life, put it in God's hand. When you're depressed over your situations, whatever is bothering you, turn it over. Somebody better shout with me. Turn it over, turn it over, turn it over. Come on, tell somebody in your neighborhood, tell somebody on your road. I know you at home. I'm just having fun like I was in church on Sunday morning. Let somebody know I'm turning this thing over to the Lord, because it's more than I can handle and more than I can bear by myself. Let me tell you something. There's a whole lot of Bible history that shows us that when you trust God to handle it, that God will work it out. When it seems like it's impossible and there's no way for you to get through this, let me tell you something. God can work it out. Do you remember even when Moses was standing at a Red Sea? Oh, yes, he was. What did he do? He turned it over to God. And what did God do? He worked it out. Do you remember, oh yeah, when Abraham was asked by God to sacrifice his son Isaac on the altar, Abraham said, listen, I'm going to put this in God's hand, and I'm going to trust God to provide a lamb. I'm going to trust God to provide a ram. I'm going to trust God to give me the sacrifice that I need so I don't have to sacrifice my own son. Do you remember Gideon when he had to face a Midianite army and he had 30,000 men, and God said, you got too many. And when Gideon got ready to go to battle, he only had 300 men left to fight with. But he looked at a Midianite army that was larger than his army, bigger than his army, greater than his army. But he said, you know what? I'm going to put this in God's hand. I know it looked like I'm small. I know it looked like I can't win. I know it looked like the odds are against me, but I just believe that when you got God on your side, that God can make it happen. I'm getting ready to leave you, but I see Joshua standing at the walls of Jericho. The walls of Jericho were fortified walls. They were tall walls. They were thick walls. They were great walls. Listen, Joshua said, listen, I know that we are not supposed to be able to conquer Jericho based on these walls, but guess what? I believe that God can make the walls come tumbling down. And what did he do? He trusted God and did what God told him to do. You got to trust God and do what God tells you to do. You got to do what God tells you to do and trust God. And guess what? When you look at the Bible, there's just too many places where over and over and over again, God does what God needs to do when God needs to do it right in the nick of time. You do know that was that widow of Zarephath who the preacher told, who the prophet told, say, God said, I know that you're down to your last meal. I know you're down to the last bit in the barrel. I know you're down to the last bit of oil, and you can only got enough to bake one cake. But the prophet said, God told me to tell you to make it, but feed me first. And what did she do? She did what God said. And guess what? You know the rest of the story. The Bible says that the meal barrel from that moment started filling up, and the oil crews start filling up in a miraculous way, so that in essence, when it looked like she couldn't make it, God said, you can make it, because I'm still on the throne, because I'm still God all by myself. Listen, I got to leave you here. I got to leave you here, but I got to tell you that here is what Isaiah 40 and 31 said. Isaiah 40 and 31 says, but they that wait on the Lord. You got to learn how to wait on God. David said, that's what I had to do. I had to wait on God. I had to come to God continually. I had to come to God confidently. I had to wait on God to handle it and to work it out. And here's what Isaiah said, but they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And David said, hold on, I'm going to close it out for you. In Psalm number 27, verse number 14, David said, wait on the Lord and be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. So for those of you who hear me and who hear what the Spirit of God is saying, I say to you tonight, wait on the Lord and be of good courage. Be of good courage and wait on the Lord. And what will the Lord do? He will strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Put it in the hands of the Lord. David says in verse number 22, Psalm 55, cast your burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain me. Lord, keep me. Lord, keep me. Pass me not, O gentle Savior. Hear my humble cry. While on others thou art calling. Please, Sir Lord, don't pass me by. You talk to him. You talk to him. You call on him. You lean on him. You trust in him. You wait on him, and watch and see what God does to strengthen you and to work it out. Listen, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you. I got to get out of here, but I trust and pray that God will bless us to get to Sunday morning. I pray that God will bless us to get to Sunday morning. And when God blesses us to get to Sunday morning, I hope you'll come running up in the house of God with your own testimony about the goodness and the grace of the Lord. And don't be ashamed to shout it out.